the Bite Blades Titan. This is one of my best Balisongs in my collection, and one of my first Balisong I ever bought with my own money. Coincidentally enough, this is one of the only Balisongs in my collection that I actually can find flaws and cons every time I flip it. But it's still my favorite Balisong. And I will get into that in today's video, which is the review of the Bite Blades Titan trainer. The Titan comes packaged like this, in a black box with strings wrapping all around the package and a stamp with their mark, or their logo. BB, so it stands for Bite Blades. And why it's a drip, I think it's a drip of blood and then a ring around. And that's because the Bite Blades Titan is actually inspired by one of Saturn's moons, which is called Titan. In the original package, these strings go all around and wrap around the box. I liked the box so much that I taped in these because I wanted to close and open the box fast when I want to flip. So the Titan comes packed like this, with the Titan beneath a card. This is the card with all the specs and the name and their socials, and a stamp with it, which is made in USA. Then the Titan comes packed like this, with some kind of a velvety material, I think. And then the Balisong. It's a quite minimalist. You don't get any extras, you don't get any stickers, you don't get anything else in the package. So it's quite minimalistic. As for the tuning of this Balisong, it's quite good actually. This run off of bushings, so the only thing you really have to do is line the screwdriver up with the pivot system and just crank down. When it stops, you're good to go. Because there are perfectly tuned bushings. So it's actually another problem with the tuning. It's these screws. These screws down here you can just crank down and you're good. But these ones, because you see, this distance here, it's actually smaller than the distance here, which means it doesn't only taper down here from smaller here to bigger here, it's also tapered from bigger here to smaller here, which means that if you crank the send pins down to the max, it stops swinging because it's tapered. It's not the same length, or it's the same length, but it's not the same thickness, which means you just have to like tighten these a bit and then Loctite them, because otherwise they will fall out, because you can't tighten these hard at all or they will stop swinging. So these pivots are cranked to the max. You can't crank them no more, but these you do have to either put in Teflon tape or you Loctite it. But if you Loctite this, and if you want to screw on this, I do have something to say about the T8s, and we'll get into that now. So, now we're on to talking about the durability of it. It's really good actually. The durability is super nice, super well. I mean, it is made out of 70-75 aluminum, which I have talked about is better than 60-65. Since I'm talking about the aluminum, I'm thinking I'm just going to take all the specs right now. So where's the card? Here's the card. So here's the pamphlet, the card, with the socials, but also the specs. So the specs are: blade material are 4140 heat treated. The handle material are 70-75 T6 aluminum. Pivot system, stainless steel bushings. Length 4.25 inches on the blade length. Handle length is 5.87 inches. Closed length is 6 inches. Open length is 10.31 inches. Weight is exactly 4 ounces. Balance, slightly handle bias to neutral. Handle construction, sandwich. And it is with the sandwich construction we run into durability problems. Because these are T8s. And T8s are very small. So what I did was crank down one of them. I don't know if you can see this, but I broke one of them. No, I dropped it. Well, anyways, I snapped off the head of the T8. I don't know the quality of the screws that he uses with the Balisongs, but I know that this shouldn't happen really. But I also feel like it's my fault, because I have never had such small screws on a Balisong, and I am very, very much used to just crank down my screws. So I would say it's 70% my fault and 30% the screw's fault that they are too weak to crank down. But just keep that in mind, that the only thing I can find on this being a problem with the durability is the T8s, and alright, it's two things more then. It's with these as well. These are made of resin. If you drop them too hard, they will crack. And I have a crack developing on one of them. But I also bought extra spacers that will glow in the dark. So even if these break, it's not a big deal for me. But that's something that you might have to consider. If you're buying this, buy some extra spacers. Just do it. It's worth it. And something else. This blade isn't stainless steel. So be careful with it around water and humid temperatures like it's in Sweden right now. It's super warm here. So every time you use it, you do have to oil the blade as well as the pivot system. So just keep that in mind, to oil your Balisong and the blade. I want to talk about the design of this. And as I said in the beginning of this video, this is my favorite Balisong, one of my best Balisongs in the collection. But it do have some cons, and they're pretty big. And it's not cons like it can't flip, it's cons like you feel this when you flip. So all these 4 corners on the resin spacer, they're sharp. I mean sharp. I can feel them. They're sharp plastic. So when I do fans, like down here, I'm like shearing the inside of my palm. It's getting a little bit of irritating if you do it a long time. And these as well, it's just they have cut off the corners and not rounded the scales, which means you get a very blocky and very edgy feeling. And also inside of the channel here, or not channel, but inside of the sandwich, they haven't even take off the corner, so it's sharp in here. And you always take that when you fan and do things like, I don't know, underhand fanning. So you do feel it. But having said that, it also gives this grip, because this have hole patterns but not big enough to give you grip. So the edges do actually give you grip. So it's a con inside of a pro. So anyway, it's a good design, but it's a design that needs a V2, and that's something I do have to say. If there ever is a V2, I'm going to buy it, because this is amazing, and if they get rid of every con I said, it's like the perfect Balisong for me. So, as a last talking point of this video, I want to talk about the flips. This is a phenomenal flipper. And it's a weird flipper at the same time. You see, this Balisong is 1 centimeter taller than like every Balisong I'm used to. And it's not a bad thing. I actually think it's kind of good. It brings a new flipping experience to the table. But one thing it also brings with the new flipping experience is it also feels a lot heavier. Even though it's one of the lightest knives I have, except for the Squiddy. It's 4 ounces, but it feels heavy because it's longer. So it's like you do have to put in more action to get it to flip. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not, the flips doesn't suffer because of it, but you feel it. Feels weird. But if you don't like it, you can just take them off. Because that's the beauty of this design. You can always take out the spacers and just put the barrels in and have a knife without the spacers in a regular length. So yeah, this design is quite nice actually. Well, that brings us to the conclusions. Do the pros outweigh the cons? Yes, I think so. This Balisong cost $185. For me, who actually have to pay shipping as well, this cost about $250 to get it shipped out also, and get into the country. And do I think it's worth $250? I think so, yeah. I think so. It's because it just flips well. It sounds great. I don't have to crank down the pivot system every once in a while. I haven't cranked down on the pivot system once since I got it. Or since I opened it, took up the pre-applied lube and put my own lube in it. But after that, I have never taken this apart or cranked on the pivots, and it's still amazing. But I do want to note that this is not for beginners. Because, or really, experienced flippers who are looking for a beater, this isn't a beater, no way. You can't flip this more than like 3 hours a day. It's impossible. Your hand will hurt so much because of the cons. But the pros, it's going to, you know, you do want to flip this. So the pros make you want to flip this, and the cons almost stops you in your tracks while flipping. So yeah. If I would to score this, I would give it, in design, feel, and things like that, I will give it a 5 out of 10. And if I would give it a score in flipping, I will give it an 8 out of 10. Take off these, it's easier to flip, 9 out of 10. So yeah, that's my conclusion of the Bite Blades Titan. The conclusion is, it's going to need a V2. And I know that this wasn't going to be a 10 out of 10 in everything, because this is his first Balisong, the first design made into a Balisong. He's going to need a V2 to compare with everything else that's a 10 out of 10. Which I don't have currently. I don't have anything 10 out of 10. So really, I don't know what a 10 out of 10 is. I mean, it's an error in my calculation because I don't know what a 10 out of 10 is. But if I were to guess, this isn't it. This needs a V2. Well, anyways, that has been it for this video, and hope you enjoyed it. And I see you in the next one.